We urge Iran to cooperate. We note Iran's acceptance of many important recommendations from the international community during its UPR, including its agreement to allow freedom of expression, freedom of the media, and of assembly. And we call on the government of Iran to live up to and implement these commitments. We strongly support the detailed recommendations from nations around the world. Mr. President, as you know, on June 12th, we will mark the one-year anniversary of the terrible events that occurred after Iran's contested election, when tens of thousands of Iranians, exercising the right to peaceful, free expression, marched through the streets for how the Iranian government brutally suppressed dissent and murdered the innocent, including a young woman left to die in the streets. Sadly, the violent response to these peaceful protesters and subsequent crackdown on peaceful expression were mentioned nowhere in Iran's accounting of its human rights record. We urge the government of Iran to uphold all of its international commitments and to account honestly for its human rights record, particularly over the past year. We take this opportunity to express our solidarity with the people of Iran who have suffered abuses simply for seeking to exercise their universal human rights.
Among these recommendations are two recommendations that were formulated by my delegation related to violations committed against ethnic, linguistic, and religious minorities, with the necessary investigations, including the review of the situations of the residents of the Ashraf camp. And the second recommendation related to minimum norms related to the treatment of those convicted, sentenced to the death penalty. Unfortunately, our recommendations to introduce an immediate moratorium on capital punishment has not been accepted by Iraqi authorities.
The mistreatment of the residents had not ended as yet. A virtual blockade has been imposed, barring visits by the residents' families and lawyers. Since February, a group of people using loudspeakers shout to threaten the residents with death and with setting the camp on fire. Not only the Iraqi officials in charge of the security and protection of the camp do not stop this campaign of threats, but it seems they condone and encourage it. The right to exercise sovereignty cannot be a justification for denying Camp Ashraf's residents their fundamental rights. We urge and encourage the Iraqi government and Iraqi delegation present here today to address the concerns expressed by the United Nations and ensure that the restrictions on Camp Ashraf will be lifted and that the residents will be treated consistently with Iraq's international law obligations. To conclude, Mr. Chairman, and within this context, allow us to remind to the government of the United States the obligation is still carried under the 4th Geneva Convention. Thank you.
Failure to cooperate with special procedures is inconsistent with Iran's standing invitation to special procedures and to their pledge of continuous and full cooperation with the OHCHR. We would be grateful for clarification from OHCHR as to the status of a standing invitation when a state fails to accept visits requested by special procedures. We note that Iran also rejected recommendations concerning discrimination and harassment of religious and ethnic minorities. Since February, has Iran refused any organization to hold public meetings, and if so, why? Finally, we are pleased that Iran has accepted a recommendation to consider abolishing juvenile executions. We urge Iran to end this abhorrent practice and to begin by an immediate stay of execution on any juveniles who are on death row. Thank you, Mr. President.
FIDH and the Iranian League for Human Rights welcome the fact that the UPR of Iran has clearly reflected the appalling situation of human rights in the country. A majority of states have strongly condemned human rights violations perpetrated in particular after the elections of June 2009. We share a number of serious concerns raised by many states during the interactive dialogue. Since the elections, peaceful protests have been harshly repressed in Iran. Torture appears to be carried out on a daily basis in prisons. 8 political prisoners have been condemned to death in connection with the elections. We support recommendations repeatedly made that Iran ensures an independent, transparent and impartial investigations into the numerous cases of violence against demonstrators in the aftermath of the presidential election. Iran should immediately release all persons detained for their participation in peaceful demonstrations A number of countries have also asked Iran to cooperate fully with the UN human rights mechanism, including by facilitating all special procedures pending visit requests. As of now, 7 special procedures are awaiting an invitation or the facilitation of their visits, including the Special Rapporteur on Torture, the Special Rapporteur on Independence of Judges and Lawyers, and the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression. Our organization regrets that Iran denied the reality and gravity of human rights violations during its UPR and did not provide any concrete reply, thereby refusing to cooperate with the Human Rights Council. Moreover, we express our concerns regarding the decision of Iran to reject 28 recommendations stating that they are inconsistent with the